Thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Welcome to the Oroville City Council meeting, February 18th, 2020. We are reconvening from closed session where direction was given but no action was taken. Will you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Salute, pledge.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
I'll second that.
Member Hatley.
Councilman Hatley.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to presentations and proclamations. We have one proclamation tonight regarding teen dating violence prevention. Is there someone here to accept this? Hello. A proclamation recognizing February 2020 as National Teen Dating Violence Prevention and Awareness Month. Whereas teen dating violence, also known as dating abuse, is a serious and growing problem throughout California. And whereas according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, 1 in 4 adolescents excuse me, report verbal, emotional, physical, or sexual dating abuse each year. 1 in 9 female teens and 1 in 13 male teens reported experiencing physical violence in the last year. And whereas survivors of teen dating violence has increased risk for truancy, dropout, teen pregnancy, suicide, having eating disorders, and engaging in other harmful behaviors such as use of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. And whereas teen dating violence intervention and prevention programs can and do help to ensure a positive school climate and safe learning environment for all youth. And whereas all teens have the right to a safe and healthy relationship free from abuse, and whereas it is essential to raise community awareness and to provide training for parents, guardians, teachers, counselors, and school staff so that they may recognize when youth are exhibiting signs of dating violence, including extreme jealousy, constant monitoring, and controlling behavior. And now, therefore, I, Chuck Reynolds, Mayor of the City of Oroville, do hereby proclaim February 2020 as National Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. I urge all residents of Oroville to support efforts by the state legislature, local schools, community groups, and families to empower young people in learning skills to have safe and healthy relationships. I encourage community leaders to assist victims in finding and accessing local resources to develop a comprehensive response to dating violence and to engage in discussions with community members of all ages about dating violence prevention in their communities.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I think she wants to
Thank you on behalf of Catalyst for declaring February Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. My name is Michaela Chacon, and I'm the South County Housing Coordinator. This is my colleague, Cindy Hawthorne, and she's the law enforcement advocate. February 2020 marks the 11th year of month-long events designed to increase awareness and prevention about teen dating violence. Teen dating violence intervention and prevention programs can help to ensure a positive school climate and safe learning environment for all students. Over our last fiscal year, Catalyst presented and spoke to thousands of Butte County youth about relationships, including how to identify red flags of abuse and maintain safe, healthy relationships with the people we care about. We lead a weekly healthy relationships group at Butte County Juvenile Hall and host the annual Youth Empowered Conference, which is an event designed to help youth become leaders in their community. This year, Catalyst will be hosting a training in Spanish for parents, guardians, and other adult allies who want to learn how to better support youth as they learn to develop healthy relationships. Catalyst has had a presence in Butte County since 1977, providing safe housing, education, advocacy services, counseling, assistance with temporary restraining orders, and court accompaniment to members of the community who have experienced abuse in their relationships. These services are available to everyone at no cost, including teens. We're lucky to serve such a passionate, generous community. Thank you very much for your support.
Okay, item number 2, a presentation from Brian Ring on the community choice aggregation with the county and Chico.
On here. Good evening, council and mayor. Tonight, Brian Ring, the deputy CEO of the county, is here to help reintroduce, I should say, this project. He's been spearheading the community choice aggregation for the county, as well as formulating the JPA for currently as the county, and Chico involved in that. So he was here, roughly a year ago, and then we kind of stalled a little bit, and now he's back to kind of refresh us, and so we can get direction to move forward, hopefully, but to answer any questions we might have. So at this time, I'll bring Brian Ring up to give the specifics. Thanks, Brian.
Is this on? All right. Good evening, council and mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to be here again. Brian Ring, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer with Butte County, and as was just said, it was about a year ago I came here to give you a brief update on what a CCA is and where the county was going. So just real briefly again, just to kind of refresh everyone's memory, community choice aggregation programs are programs that local jurisdictions can participate in that allow cities, counties, local municipalities to procure energy on the open market, ideally at a lower rate, and then pass those savings on to your customers' business and residences. But it's still, it would be a critical partnership with the investor-owned utility, which in our region, it's PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric. PG&E is still critical. They're still responsible for all the infrastructure, transmission, billing. So it truly is a partnership between local entities and the investor-owned utility. And this process started back in the county probably 4 or 5 years ago, believe it or not, and it was a local business group that requested that our Board of Supervisors look into this. And it's been a long process. In 2017, we had a feasibility study done, got the results in 2018. There were some changes within the PUC, made some changes to some of the things where we wanted to have that study refreshed to make sure it was still viable. But ultimately, the study did determine that a CCA program is financially viable for this community. And by financially viable, that means there's potential to provide savings to the community, and then those savings also then reinvested back into the community and other programs. So the study initially included the county, the unincorporated area of the county of Butte, the city of Chico, the city of Oroville, and the town of Paradise. Those were the 4 jurisdictions that were assessed, and those were all deemed to be viable. The county and the city of Chico had to be participants because they frankly take up about 80% of that energy mix for those 4 entities. So in order to get the most bang for your bucks, you needed to have those 2 entities participate, and those actually are 2 entities that are going forward in it right now. So back in 2019, the county and the city did a number of steps which have to be done in order to form a CCA program. The governing body has to pass an ordinance to do so. Then you have to come into an agreement with a joint powers authority. That's how this is going to be governed right now. The JPA is in existence. Butte Choice Energy Authority is 2 members of the Board of Supervisors, and 2 members from the Chico City Council sit on that board. So they're the governing body right now. So obviously, if the city of Oroville were to request to be a participant in that, the first thing would be to get some agendas on their meetings. We meet monthly right now. 2019 there was a lot of work that had to be done in order to launch actually in 2021, which seems like a long ways away. It seemed like a long ways away a couple of years ago, but it's just around the corner now. So an implementation plan would be the next thing that had to be done in 2019. So I'm not talking a lot of technical terms, but long story short, the PUC needs about a year, a full calendar year, for new entities to join. And it's all about planning the load and the electricity distribution. So the BCA is planning on launching in 2021 right now, so we're going through the process of requests for proposals to get all the technical support that the entity needs in 2020 to prepare for a spring 2021 launch. And ideally that there will be savings for consumers. And then ultimately, instead of other proceeds going to investors of a privately owned electric company, then those proceeds can be reinvested in the community, which they're anticipating to be $7 to $10 million a year. So ultimately, the community will be able to come to the board of directors and say, hey, I'd like to see these types of energy projects in the future. Or I'd like to see different energy programs out there. So really, that's when it truly becomes a choice for the community members. How do they want to see these proceeds reinvested instead of going to an investor-owned utility? So that's kind of a high-level snapshot. I'm happy to answer any questions or go into details on any other particulars of the matter.
Does anyone have any questions? Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate your presentation and a good update on the potential, and I certainly see it valuable to this community for a lot of reasons. The CCA will still have direction and guidance by the PUC?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So the items like the public safety power shutdowns will still be a part of that process, and as PG&E is the distributor of the power, all we're doing is buying the power for it to come into the system.
Correct, and I've had a lot of questions on that in recent months, and great questions. Mm-hmm. So the PSPS, the public safety power shutoffs, those are truly driven by the folks that are running the infrastructure. So PG&E would still have sole control over that. But someone asked me, well, what could potentially a CCA, how could that impact the PSPSs? And one thing that could be done, and I've heard a lot of agencies talking about this, is once the entity has been in existence for a couple of years, and obviously there's a lot of startup capital that needs to be put out there. So once your debt's paid off, then you'll see the revenue and the proceeds start to build up a rate stabilization fund, so you have stable rates for your customers, but then eventually you have funds that could be reinvested in the community. And some things I've heard about, like microgrids that could be put into place for critical infrastructure or communities that really heavily rely and can't go without a PSPS. So that's something that could be used to address it if the community wanted that, and then if the governing body wanted to do something like that. But that would be a program that could be used to mitigate that.
Do some of the programs entice people with like solar systems and those kind of things too, or is that separate?
You know, that's if folks have solar power now, there's no problem. Because I've had the question asked as well. But if folks have rooftop solar at their homes, they can coordinate. But ultimately, if the governing body wanted to develop incentive programs, they could certainly do that. That's truly the beauty of a community choice program. Is one is the community members have choice whether they want to be with PG&E or with the CCA, because that ultimately would be their first choice. And the next choice would be, if I'm with the CCA, you can actually, community members could purchase different types of energy mixes too. Let's say you were heavily concerned about the environment, you wanted to pay a little bit more for 100% renewable energy, you could do that. Mm-hmm. Or if you weren't so concerned and you were more concerned about your pocketbook, you can go for the lowest cost energy mix. And then ultimately after that, once this entity has funds built up, then the community can decide, how do we want to reinvest those funds into our own communities? That's to me where it really gets to be exciting.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Oh, you bet.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, you kind of hinted to that as far as the JPA and some of the dynamics when it comes to renewable energy, because that's really a driver behind a lot of this in that it meets that requirement that as we think in the future, green energy, and there are requirements that the state has placed upon communities and cities to meet those requirements. And at our current pace, we're not going to meet that. So the idea behind the JPA, first and foremost, is to meet those green requirements. So it's not always about the savings. And that means cities like Chico, counties like Butte or Oroville, we're making the public, essentially through those entities, are making those upfront investments. And it can be a little tricky as far, when I looked into it. For the most part, it's been okay, but there's not this massive windfall of, where people are going to enjoy huge savings. And you alluded to something that's really important, I think, for everyone to understand. This is more about the future in green energy as opposed to saving money in your pocketbook at this point, as the way it's structured. So when you think about Chico, their needs may be, or their ideology may be different. I'm going someplace with this. So, they may be more inclined to look through that lens than maybe Oroville. Maybe not. But that being said, when we were looking at this earlier on, we were offered an equal seat at the table. And you just mentioned there's two Chico council persons, two supervisors. And so you might need us to join in. I mean, I don't know where you are in the dollars and cents, but that was part of that mix of having enough upfront dollars for the initial investment. So if we're offered this opportunity, would we then, as the city of Oroville, have an equal place, a seat at the table, if you will, in those decision-making processes? Because, I mean, it can impact, our community, and we might have a little different, we might or might not. I mean, I don't know.
That's a great
But I
question.
just want to know, are we still being offered an equal seat at the table?
That's a good question. Let me comment on a couple things there. First of all, you're absolutely right about the savings. 2 to 3% savings is what people project for residents. And if your bill's $200, is 2 to 3% savings going to be a whole lot? It's not. You're not talking significant dollars there. But when you're talking about the entire population, that's where you get significant monies that can be saved, that can be reinvested in the community. So you're right. For an individual, it's not a significant amount of savings. To your next question, how would the voting mechanics work? And that truly would be a dialogue to have with the JPA board. Right now, there are mechanics out there where if it's not a uniform vote, if there's not unanimous vote or whatever the voting criteria that's required for a specific action that's taken by that board, then it could go to percentage of power mix. So to your point, could it then be, how would the city of Oroville relate to the other two entities? I can't say off the top of my head, but that would be something that I think would have to be, as I mentioned, one of the steps would be to work with the existing Joint Powers Authority and look at that document and see where the concerns are for the city of Oroville and see what would want to be mixed. I can say this, that in talking with other entities, there's been very few disagreements in the smaller ones that have had to go down that point where it's a percentage of power to actually make a determination. But you're absolutely right. There's 20 CCAs throughout the state of California now that are in existence and performing very well. So why don't some of them merge? I think because some of them have different community of interest. They want to do different things that are different than, say, Northern California is different than the Bay Area. The Bay Area is different than Southern California. So certainly you want to be, if you want to join into CCA, you want to make sure you're in with partners that you have some sort of commonalities and mutual of interest or some synergy there. Because you're right, if you're going down two different paths, you don't want to be butting heads about certain projects or certain things if they aren't a priority for the city of Oroville. Now, as far as the rates go, you mentioned some districts, some folks might want to be more heavily focused on green, and you're absolutely right. And that's the beauty of being able to have 3 product mixes as a CCA. You can really try to appease to everybody. You have to meet the bare bones minimum renewable standards, which you mentioned the state has. That's the bare bones. I think it's 35% now. But if you have a 35%, we've talked about having a 35% mix, a 50 or 75% mix, and then a 100% mix. So if there's people out there, consumers that want to be heavily on the green side, by all means, you can pay more for that energy. But if you're more concerned about your pocketbooks, you can pay for the one that just meets the bare bones state standard.
Yeah, because I guess my point is you could actually end up paying more, be more green, lower carbon footprint.
Yep.
But your actual outgo could actually be greater.
Absolutely.
You know, in
again,
certain,
that
in
would be-
certain scenarios. And I think that's just important for.
Absolutely.
So it's a priority thing. You know?
Yeah.
Councilmember Goodson.
My question is simplistic. I'm just, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for both residential and business consumers, what is the benefit of paying both the CCA and PG&E for the use of its infrastructure?
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry. What's the benefit of?
It was kind of facetious, I'm sorry. Because the power does come through PG&E.
Yes.
And so somebody has to pay for the use of their infrastructure.
Yep.
And so that cost is passed on to the consumer.
Correct.
In addition with paying for
The energy.
the energy.
Correct. So how it would work is you'd see there'd be two line items on bills, and they still would come from PG&E. One's going to be for T&D, they call it transmission and distribution, and that's going to be the same cost. Someone asked me, well, what if PG&E wants to punish CCAs and charge those folks more? They're prohibited by the PUC, so they have to charge T&D costs the same for CCAs as they do for their own customers. So T&D costs will be the same whether you're with PG&E or a CCA. The only difference then is how much are you paying for your juice or your electricity.
The
So that's
energy.
where the CCA would ideally, in order to be successful, they're going to have to get it at a lower cost. If they can't get it at a lower cost, then there's no need for them to be in existence.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate your presentation.
No, you bet.
Thank you, Brian.
You've been happy to come back and if there's any questions, I know I've been working with Leo and happy to work further on that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 3 is a new police department employee will be introduced. I believe we have a oath of office for a new officer.
Yes, sir. We put that on the agenda so we could introduce a newly hired employee at the police department. He is here in the room tonight. He came to us after 23-plus years serving the citizens of Butte County at Butte County Sheriff's Office. Prior to that, he served his country in the United States Army, and we're very happy that he's come to continue his career in the city of Oroville. Sergeant Joel Malinowski, if you want to come down and do his oath.
It's always a privilege and pleasure to add to our public safety. Any employee or the team of the city of Oroville it's just an honor to be involved in it. But our first responders and our safety team are really special to us, and I just personally want to welcome you. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to read you your oath of office. Okay. Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Joel H. Malinowski,
I, Joel H. Malinowski,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution
that I will support and defend the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the Constitution
and allegiance to the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and that I take this obligation freely
and that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter for the City of Oroville Police Department.
for the City of Oroville Police Department.
go to Jackie. Sorry, here you go. Do you have anything you want to say?
Sure. Part of this is a ceremonial badge pinning. If I could ask Joel's wife, Jen, to come on down. She's going to pin his badge on him. Do you have anything you want to say?
I just want to say thank you to all of you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
We're glad to have you.
So, Mr. Mayor, I know it's not, we talked just about Joel, and I am going to put her on the spot. We do have another employee that just walked in the building here, Kathleen Sukasam. She's already been sworn in, but she never had the opportunity to come in and get introduced to the council. I think you swore her in a private ceremony that we had with her family. But this is Officer Sukasam. She comes from Oroville. She's a local here, Las Plumas graduate, UC Davis graduate. And she's been employed here. She's in her training program right now, still going through about your 12th week. She's about 12 weeks on now. So we just wanted to give a chance to introduce her as well.
Okay. At this time, we're going to move on to public communication, the hearing of non-agenda items. And I'd like to remind everyone at this time, if there's an item that you'd wish to speak on, please have your blue card in before we get to that item so things can move smoothly. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Mr. Mayor, I have 6 speakers for non-agenda items. The first speaker is George Dios, and then August Lincoln.
I'm George. Seen you a couple weeks ago when Scott Kennelly gave you a presentation on Laura's Law. Kind of threw me off because I spent 8 months with the Chico City Council even to get it to that point to where they could vote on it and send a letter of support to the Board of Supervisors. There's families like mine. Right now, my daughter is in mental health right now, and she's going to get out again. And right now, I can't do nothing with my hands tied because we don't have assistant outpatient treatment here. What that is a team of individuals that take an interest in their clients, and they help advocate with them, and they go through all these different things and all these different obstacles that people have to go through that. What also happens with that is it frees our hands up, and then we can participate and be part of that program with them. You know, it's really hard to keep my daughter when she's not on her pill, to keep her off the streets, because that's kind of a thing that kind of goes with it. Aside from, you know, like in my home, I live in an apartment, and I started a neighborhood watch because I did live in Southside Oroville here. But they're all aware of my situation, and as best they can, they just had enough. Because when somebody's screaming and yelling and acting all these other ways because they won't go in and get the help, it's just very frustrating, you know. Families like mine, I also work for NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. I do all the booths and fairs. And I see people all the time because that's why I'm right there in front. And the frustration's real. So, so when Scott was speaking, he wants to get that the grant money, but he mentioned something else. He mentioned that if there's a public outcry, and this is the part that we're doing. So NAMI's going to all the city councils to get letters of support to send to the Butte Board of Supervisors. And so what I'm asking is if you guys will agendize it, vote on it, and send that letter and help us. Thank you.
August Lincoln, and then Nguyen.
I withdraw my presentation.
So Nguyen, and then Bill Spear.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. This is my first time doing this. I'm a little nervous, but my family have lived in Oroville for 25 years. We moved straight from Vietnam to Oroville, of all places, under a political refugee program. So Today, what I want to talk about is actually how amazing Oroville is after traveling back to Vietnam, seeing a bit of China, and then going to Egypt. So after learning that there are 9 awesome museums here, I believe it's 9, last time we had a meeting. So one suggestion I would make as somebody who have a background in environmental science, and by using the precautionary principle, is how about we make Oroville an ecological museum by turning it into a bee sanctuary, because we have 1,600 bee species in California, but only a few of them you've seen, like bumblebees and honeybees. But if something happened in the climate and other things, and if you grow anything, you probably see how things are changing, the flowers are coming different time, and the range of things are moving differently. So to give us a buffer, if we have diversity in the pollinators, it could help us when things changes, or maybe another drought or temperature, a heat wave comes. There was a really, there was an article that hit me at the heart. I saw a picture of a person in China pollinating flowers by hands because they ran out of pollinators. So that would be my suggestion for Oroville. Thank you.
Bill Spear and then Amy Jernigan.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I am really excited for what's going on in our city. The change, the turnaround, we had adding a couple more fires, a couple more police, and I believe it has to do with prayer and turning towards God. So I'm here to continue to pray. So Father, we thank you for another day, for our new police officers and fire fighters, that you would protect them, and thank you for all the wonderful people in Oroville that you are raising up and bringing with visions for our future. If it's bumblebees or whatever it is, Lord, we pray that you would continue to bless us way beyond our means, continue to give us supernatural favor, supernatural wisdom. For all the items on the agenda tonight, Lord, we pray for your guidance and your kingdom come, your will be done. And for our brother, as is worried about his daughter, and we pray that the community would get behind and support Laura's Law, and for those that are homeless and lost, and Lord, the ones in the jail, Lord, you put the jail in Oroville, and you've given us charge over it. And I just pray that we would, as a community, raise up and make a way to help them to get reestablished into society, help the homeless to find a home, help get them being productive members of society, break the chains of the criminals to get them being productive. Again, we pray for your wisdom for our city council members, your protection for our public servants, and you would continue to give us the increase far above our ability and our resources for your kingdom and your glory in Jesus.
Amy Jernigan, and then our last speaker is the cameraman.
Right. First thing is I want to give an amazing shout out to Oroville Police Department. Some of you know that yesterday morning my husband's dirt bike was stolen from our home. Made the report at 8:30 a.m. and at 11:30 Sergeant Sears had my bike. 3 hours, pretty amazing. And today they rolled up and grabbed the guy. So CHP and Butte County Sheriff did help, but OPD grabbed it and sacked them, tagged them, whatever you guys say on that. So thank you very much. The other reason that I am here is I am an ambassador with the Chamber of Commerce and recently added on as a board member. And the city of Oroville has renewed their membership with the chamber, and I have your new chamber decal. So one of my jobs is to come in if I'm allowed. I didn't ask this ahead of time, but if we could do a quick photo with whoever, because it's the city of Oroville, so staff, if staff wants to. Oh, you look pretty, you can do it.
I'm a chamber member.
But I mean, you don't have to get down with me. Everybody's chomping at the bit to jump up.
I did.
Can we get close?
Come on, Dave, bring it in.
Come on. Lean in. Oh, thank you. Okay. All right, you good? Are you photobombing? Nice.
There we go. All right.
All right.
Thank you guys so much. That was it for me.
All right.
And again, thank you. Biggest thank you to everybody. It's really great.
Thank you for the kind words, Amy.
And our last speaker for public comment, the cameraman.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. Just quick on public comment. First off, it's probably a little bit old, but it's relative to me because I did mention it a couple, about sometime last year, I'd say maybe 6 months. But the markings on Feather River Boulevard as you're traveling south towards Walmart, that stretch between 162 and towards Walmart, that's been updated with a fresh coat of paint for markings. So that's good to see. Hopefully now drivers will be more aware and there won't be any confusion or less confusion when approaching the light or making a left turn into one of the businesses potentially, because I've seen people get into the oncoming lane to make left turns sometimes. And finally, regards to the officers being the new female officer and our new sergeant, I can tell by his, correct me if I'm wrong, but those markings below mean you've been doing this for a long time, from my understanding. So it's good to see we have more officers, and hopefully they've gotten the correct training so they are well aware of California Penal Code 148G, which states that filming an officer or a public official is not a crime, nor it is a reason to detain somebody, as well as if a person has a place to be in a public place where, as I am right now, I have a right to be in this public meeting, and making a fact that I'm making a recording of it is not a crime. And we're also being recorded by the city. So there's no privacy, and so there's no issues. So I would hopefully they can pass that on to some of the older staff and continue to respect the public's rights and make sure there's no shining of flashlights or prior restraint. So hopefully that they understand that. So since they're new, I knew newer officers have the upgraded training. So thanks for your time, and good night.
Mr. Mayor, that was the last speaker for this item.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I do have I have a speaker for two separate items for the consent calendar.
Which items?
Item 1 and 4.
Okay. Well, we're looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar, pulling items number 1 and 4.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar, exempt items 1 and 4.
I'll second.
Motion carries.
Okay, item number 1, memorandum of understanding with Oroville City Elementary School District. We have a speaker on this item?
The cameraman.
Good evening again, Oroville City Council. I'd just like to make a comment on item number 1 in regards to the memorandum there. If I mispronounce that, I apologize. I'm not familiar with some of these Latin-type sounding words. But just a quick comment in regards to this. Police officers in public schools are a bit iffy, in my opinion. I understand the need for protection. Just recently, on February 14th, there was the anniversary, if you're all familiar. 2 years ago, there was the Parkland shooting in Florida. And there's a need to protect students. I can understand in this day and age that children and teens and young adults are becoming more and more dangerous potentially when it comes to understand these young individuals' emotions are not always there. And in this day and age, especially when there's people out there that don't take gun ownership seriously and leave weapons unattended and just make it real easy for unresponsible people to get a hold of them and make it difficult for responsible gun owners to maintain their rights and ownership. I understand there's a need to protect students, but there's also a fine line from protecting and also enforcing. But remember, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, if you look back in the Supreme Court rulings, way back in, I believe it was 2005 ruling, the police, their job at the end of the line of the day is to enforce the law. That's why they're called nowadays law enforcement officers. So again, we do have laws about shooting, so if that law is being broken, they have to be enforced. But that doesn't mean they have to protect people. You may feel differently about that opinion, but keep in mind in the Parkland shooting, the deputy waited outside for an amount of, I believe it was 20 minutes, and now he's being charged for.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I believe this is a good program the city should invest in. I mean, to cite an exception and decide that that's the rule is probably at least not well thought out. I mean, that was an individual. We have courageous police officers, and there's nothing that you can do that is going to ensure the safety of your students more than having our police officers on those campuses in the event that an individual comes onto those campuses and wishes to do harm. There's nothing more effective you can do than this. This is something that the schools want. This is something that the police department wants, and I believe is in the best interest of this community. Exceptions don't make rules. I mean, that individual, in my opinion, is a coward that did that in that particular situation. We don't have cowards here. We don't hire cowards.
Thank you. More speakers on this item?
There are no more speakers on this item, Mr. Mayor.
Any comments from the dais? Councilmember Goodson?
I just want to state for the record that those that know that I work for Youth for Change, and our youth are the school resource officer program in our schools is an invaluable service to our students. Many of them come from, they're challenged, and so there is a need for this type of service when our students cannot find suitable ways and methods to cope in the school system, and they have a tendency to elope, to walk off campus. And I don't know how many times that because of a school resource officer, they have been able to connect, engage, and interact with our students and give them hope and redirect their mindset. And they have gone on to become productive in our city and in the communities of their choice.
Councilmember Smith?
Yeah, I just want to just offer another perception too. I don't think all of our resource officers are armed. There's some that are and some that are not. Is that correct?
No, sir. All SROs, well, we have 2 MLEs currently filling those positions. There's 4 SRO positions right now. We fill two MLEs that are non-sworn, non-armed.
Right. So there is a little
bit of a mix.
Yeah, and just to say that one of the things that I think is just really cool about those, first they have a heart for kids. And they engage the kids, and then they create that different dynamic that the kids begin to develop that different relationship. I think that we all want to see more of a positive interaction with our students in our schools and law enforcement. And so this program is just, I just can't say enough about it. We could talk about it probably all night and the worthiness of it, but I just wanted to point those 2 things out. And again, it's just an amazing program. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll go ahead and say something too about that. we're living in different times, and I, for one, am very, very thankful to see them resource officers there. And I think people forget that it's people that made it like this. It's people that made it necessary to have others policed, a police force, for people to follow the rules. We might think of things how we would handle them, but I will tell you, folks, there's a lot of people out there who are not thinking like you. And I, for one, am very thankful for not only the school resource officers, but the rest of the police station as well. I think that we have a very strong team, and they work well together. And I'm feeling a lot better about how this town is protected and looked after. I think that we have good leadership from right from our entry-level employees to the top, and I just really feel good about the way things are going. So I'm thankful for the resource officers. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment?
I'll make a motion, though.
Ha-
Make a motion that we adopt resolution number 8336, resolution of the City Council authorizing and direct the mayor to execute memorandum of understanding with Oroville City School District for school resource officer services for the 2020-2021 school year, agreement number 3253-2. And I only wish we could double this number. We don't have the budget to do it, but I'd love to be able to double the resource officers.
Was there a second yet?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Councilmember Hatley, second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Okay, item number 4 was also pulled. Madam Clerk, do we have a speaker on this item?
We do the cameraman.
Good evening again, Oroville City Council. Boy, that's great. We have good public discussion before we make important decisions for our community. And now on to item number 4, again, another important decision for our community. The council may consider an increase in cost to replace the motor of the Oroville Fire Department engine number 2. As many of you may or may not be aware, nowadays the fire department, now these statistics may have changed from now, but I believe they're still the same. But back, it was 2018, I spoke with I had a personal conversation with the Anaheim fire chief. I believe he's now retired. They have a new one. In the hallway, just general conversation about fire duties and fire-related things. And he explained to me that nowadays, the fire department usually only their time is spent about 12% of their time on actual fire. The other 80%, no, I'm sorry, 12%, 82% is spent on going to medical-related calls. Nowadays, fire is mostly related to medical aids, people falling, traffic accidents. That's considered a medical. I mean, if the car catches on fire, yeah, it's a fire. But mostly, the fire department would be rescuing somebody, providing medical aid and assistance, things of that nature. So we need to make sure our motors and vehicles that are powered by these motors are in working conditions to ensure fast and decent response times, to make sure we can get to these people in time to provide that life-saving medical treatment. So please consider these factors in making this decision, and thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? Any comments from the dais? Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the replacement of a remanufactured motor and engine 2 in an amount not to exceed $60,000.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to regular business. Item number 6, proposed changes to the appearance of public safety vehicles.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I've prepared a a little presentation on the screen to help me follow through. I don't have the staff report in front of me. I'm going to do it off the screen in my memory, but this is going to help me keep track and then give you some things to look at along the way. When I was first taken over in the position that I'm in now, there was a number of things that I had to prioritize, and I'm not going to get into all that, but one of the things on the list was vehicles and some of the issues that I saw with them, not just the fact that we're in a constant need of vehicles. But another thing that I had to look at was how can I save cost in various areas? And I identified a way to save a cost in this area without jeopardizing any safety or violating any rules or laws or anything like that. And it just goes down to, we bought new vehicles, and when they started coming in, then I started evaluating what I can do. There's a series of different vehicles in the police and fire station or public safety department. The community service vehicle or municipal law enforcement vehicle is the one you see on the screen right there. And the only thing that we did on that is they're called MLEs. That's their title, municipal law enforcement. We just changed the wording on that. That's what it looks like there. Everything else on that's the same. The cost is the same. There's no change in cost, no change. We left it white. We left the amber lights. All that's the same. This is the big one. This is much different. It's a different appearance, but I'd like to explain why. On the left, I think it should be on the left over here with a white door. That's the design currently in the police department. That white door is not actually white, it's black. The vehicle comes black. That's wrapped with a vinyl. That looks great when you do it, but over time it looks horrible. The reason it looks horrible is, and it's hard to tell on there, but beneath the L and the I, you can see a discoloration there. In a few moments, you're going to see an up-close picture that's going to show where there was gouges taken out of it. That's from door dings. Once you break the plastic on there, you see the black door underneath. For those of you that know me, I pride myself in the appearance, not only of our equipment, but our officers and things like that, so I want them to look nice. And as they go through time, they just don't look nice any longer. It costs $400 per door to put that wrap on there. So each door you have 800, and the tops of them are white with an added cost. It's about $1,000 to do one car. We've got 6 cars on order right now. If they come black, as you can see, I put them up to compare. Upper right-hand corner, you can see both vehicles coming at you. No difference in appearance when their vehicles approaching you. The lights are all still the same. The only change to this was the doors are black now, and the colors of the words police, obviously I can't have Oroville in black. On black it wouldn't do, so it's a gray. All of those letters are reflective. If there's light against them, they're going to reflect. The white door is not reflective. Here's your up close, what I was talking about on the current vehicle there. You see all those black marks on there. That's from door dings or different things that happen. Anything that gouges in that, it now peels. And if we go through the car wash, we have a wonderful company here in town. Pastime offers us car washes there. I expect the guys and girls to take their cars there, but now when the high pressure comes on that, it starts to peel off, becomes sticky, and I've got to replace it. I've got to replace it at the cost of $1,500. It's $700 for the labels. Well, you got to rewrap the doors, $400 each. If we leave them black, we save that money to the tune of about $1,500 to repair it. There is another option. We could paint them, but to paint them right, when you got a brand new car, there's a lot of prep work, and you're looking at about $1,500 to $1,900 to do it at the place that we do all of our work, which is Pioneer. Those are the options with the police vehicles. Fire, as you can see, the one on the left is the old fire vehicle. That's probably, Councilmember Pittman could probably tell me much better how long that's been there, but I believe it's a long time. Yeah. The one to the right is the most recent. That's the vehicle we replaced that was damaged in the campfire. On this, you can see that it's a little bit different color. It's a red line instead of a gold one. Oroville Fire is much larger and can be seen. And what's really hard to tell on the picture, if you look on the camper shell, in the lower right corner of the camper shell, what that is a fire core values. I got to thank, again, Councilmember Pittman. He brought the idea up. We talked about it in the fire station, really liked it. And for those of you who don't know, it says preserving lives and property. Mm-hmm. On every police vehicle, you're going to see to protect and serve, police values. On fire, we want to put all that on all of the vehicles, preserving lives and property, so that's the core values of fire. And those are the changes that are there on the fire vehicles. So yes, I have to apologize because when I came to you and asked for permission to buy vehicles and we included labeling, May have been an assumption on my part, but I assumed I had the wherewithal just to do it. So I did it. And then I was made aware that I probably need to come in here and at least seek some guidance on whether I can make those changes. So if the answer is no, then and we need to change things back, then we'll certainly do that. But that vehicle that you saw displayed, there is one vehicle out there that's like that right now, as there is that fire vehicle right there. But those are the changes that I'm looking to make. Merely, it's what I want moving forward in the police department. I think it has a good look, and I think it saves money, and it cuts costs where we're currently spending it on our current vehicles. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Councilmember Hatley, please.
Thank you. Excuse me, a little hay fever or something going on here. I can speak about every chief from the 71 on, okay? And every chief makes some type of change, whether it be Chief Barrett came in, Oroville Police used to have a star, looked exactly like the Sheriff's Department, CHP and that, okay? He changed that to the shield that you see today, that we have today. There was some pushback on that, but that was his choice. He was the chief. He had to make that department his own. And every chief has made, even when Mr. Legron was the chief, he made changes because he changed the color of the cars. I mean, the wrapping on the doors. Excuse me. So, and that's fine, because you need to have that ability as the chief to make that department yours. This council charged you with making that department yours and making it run properly. To me, if you want to change that, then you change it, because to me, you have to be able to say, this is my department now. It has no reflection on any past chiefs or anything else. So, to me, I like this because it shows me that you want to make this department yours. And that's why I voted for you, because it should be yours. You have that responsibility. And I like the looks of it. It makes no difference to me. But to me, as far as whether it's the door's white or black, this should be your decision. And if you want to make that, for me to say that, make it. That's what we pay you to do, is to make those decisions.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, may I weigh in on this prior to council finishing their comments? I respect the chief's decision to do this and the frugality that he's demonstrating by doing this, but I wholeheartedly disagree. It's not about what I want or what I think is best. I've had a real-world experience with the black one. You can't see it. It's not visible. I mean, it came across my path of travel. It certainly said police on the side, but I wondered to myself, what is this idiot doing? That came across the thing they were going to a call for service. Now, a black and white vehicle is universally known. It doesn't matter where I went in the world. I know when I see a black and white car, I know what that means. This is about visibility. This is about liability of what those cars are. I believe that the chief can certainly do, if there's a different configuration for police or Oroville or whatever that is on there, that's great. I think that it's well worth the money that we'd be spending to paint the doors and the roofs white so that we know what those cars are. It's about visibility. I'm telling you, the experience I had with the black one, I was the one that brought it to the chief's attention and let him know that this is a policy decision of this council, and I respect whatever that decision is. This is the chief's department. I'm really not trying to run it. I just don't think that this is a good decision for visibility purposes. It's a good decision to, if you want to change the look of the cars up or something like that. The fire one looks fantastic. They did a wonderful job on that. I seen that in real life, and it looks great. The MLE cars, I have some concerns about that, but I respect exactly what Councilman Hatley said. It's the chief's department, and I will yield my concern to that. My only concern is going with a solid black car, the visibility and the liability that we may have because of that, with not knowing what that is. Quite honestly, it looks like every other mall cop everywhere else. I want to know that's a real police officer when I see a black and white car.
Just to comment on a couple of things real quick on that. This isn't a decision that I just said, oh, I'm going to save some money, we're going to do this. I actually did some research on this, and you have some other agencies that have all-black police vehicles very close to your city. One of them's in Yuba County. They have all-black police vehicles. One of them's in Reading. They recently went to all navy, dark, midnight blue police vehicles, and all they have is just a badge on their door. In our town here, the sheriff, I understand black and white's traditional. I think the proposed is a little bit more modern. The sheriff's office uses all white. They have a green label. There's other agencies that have 4 white doors. There's one that's very similar to the current Oroville Police Department here, that is California Highway Patrol. That's their design. That's all this was. I respect the former chief and his opinion. No disrespect at all. That's just the decision that I came up with. I didn't think that doing that one black vehicle early was going to be that I was going to get such a response from not only the staff, but the community as a whole. I actually had somebody, I don't even know who they were, asked me if I could put that black police car at the lead of the parade because it looked so good. It's just been an outpouring of support for that. But at the end of the day, I understand if it's a policy decision, I'll respect whatever the decision here is tonight. Please also understand that the letters that you see on the vehicle on the right are all reflective. They're all reflective, so they reflect in the light.
I have a question, Chief. These other agencies that went to all black vehicles are all midnight blue vehicles. Do you have any data on if their automobile accidents have increased involving those vehicles?
I don't have any data because I don't think they keep they could say how many vehicle crashes, but I don't think they would know if it's attributed to that. The navy blue from Reading, I just saw that probably a month ago that it was there. The Yuba County, I just have a working relationship with a lot of the guys there. They've had those black vehicles for years. I guess the easy answer to your question is no. I don't have that.
Thank you. Councilmember Draper.
I'd just like to say that I appreciate your willingness to go to these lengths to make improvements. And I think aesthetically and economically, it's a win-win. And as someone who has a son who's a CHP officer, I can guarantee you, when those lights are flashing, it doesn't matter what color that car is, they're going to know that it's a police car.
Thank you.
Councilmember Pittman.
Well, I could tell you years and years of stuff talking about colors and vehicles and emergency vehicles, and then we could have a discussion about what kind of lights you're going to have. But I think it's very prudent. To me, I like your changes. I would caution you, though, in the fire service, for some reason, we have a particular problem with color dissemination. And your fire department vehicle looks great, and the addition of the motto is a great idea because the public doesn't know what we do in terms of the fire service. I mean, protect and serve has been the mantra of the law enforcement, and I got to give them credit. It's a good one. And I think the fire department's stepping up and saying, life and property, that's the business that you're in. I would caution you, though, that when I was on the job, we had the opportunity to purchase a new ladder truck at about $750,000. And I found one on the road that was a dealer demo that saved us about $70,000. And we brought it in, but it was red. And we were green, and everyone in the fire department wanted that truck painted green. But I couldn't find 2 taxpayers that wanted to spend $32,000 to change the color from red to green. So there is that economic, and I appreciate you looking at the economics of it.
Sure.
And we still have that ladder truck today, and it's red, and it works just fine.
There's a mixed opinion in the fire station on making all of them red now. So I think it just goes with the time. And I definitely gotta thank you for the suggestion on that motto.
Yeah,
it's
it
just
looks
not
good.
something that we'd ever thought of. Once it was discussed, unanimous, everybody's like,
good.
yeah, let's put it on there.
Good.
And I know it's small in the picture, but it does. It does look
Shows
good.
up really well. Looks
It
good.
looks
Thank
really
you.
well.
I'm good with it all. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I agree that it's your department and your signature is required, and I appreciate you going the extra mile and having your interest in this. And and I think that they look very nice. But I want to tell you, I think that it's very wise of you to come before your governing board with any policy changes. That's a wise thing to do, because it puts it on us instead of you. And if that's a controversial issue, that shows wisdom.
I appreciate
And,
that. And again, I will apologize for making that, those vehicles look that way. You know, I'm still learning, and I mean, it is, it's what we make it. I did it, and if that was wrong, then I'm certainly wrong.
Well, thank you. Are there
Mr.
any comments on this item?
We do have one public speaker on this item, the cameraman.
Good evening again, Oroville City Council. In regards to item number 4, I'm not item number 4, but item number 6 here, the proposed change to the appearance of the safety vehicles. First, the mutual law enforcement vehicle. I don't really have a problem with the design. I mean, it's no different from the removing the community service. I mean, we need to have our vehicles clearly displayed of what these people driving them do. The only thing I suggest is, instead of having the seal on the back door, maybe in the front, just kind of keep the similarities. It just looks a little bit nicer in my opinion. Regards to the police vehicles being all black, from my understanding, this is a manufacturer's from Ford. They make them all black, so maybe they need to make them with white doors in the future. Maybe that's something they can consider, but then again, they might charge more money for that. But I don't really care what color, if it's black with white doors, white, black, I don't really care. I just don't want those lights in the front shining into my camera using prior restraint to block me from recording. But either way, what color it is, for people for reference, in the state of California, this is law. If a police vehicle pulls you over, it has to have a solid red lights displaying in the front. So if you have a police vehicle pull you over and you don't know or can't see distinguished markings, and if they don't have a solid red light displaying in the front, as in you look in your rear view mirror in the front of the vehicle, you'll see a solid red lights displaying, that could be an indicator of someone who is not a police officer. But from my understanding, other units use other departments use units that are completely black for such activities as gang enforcement or DUI saturation because of the darkness of their vehicles. So I don't see really what the problem is if it can be seen.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that's the only speaker on this item.
If there are no more comments from the dais, I'm looking for a motion on item number 6.
I move that we authorize the discussed changes by Chief Joe Deal to the appearances of the public safety vehicles.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Moving on to item number 7, council appointments to committees, commissions, and boards. And I know it's the duty of the mayor to appoint to committees, but we just did this in September?
Yes.
So if the council is in agreement, I would move that we remain in our positions and we revisit this next February as scheduled. I'm perfectly fine with my assignments and commitments as long as everyone else is.
I'll second that motion.
Good.
That was a motion.
That's a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one public speaker.
Okay.
On this committee's August Lincoln 11 Wallflower Terrace. On this committee, is there any stipends? Anybody getting paid on some of these committees?
This is your opportunity to provide a statement to the council. So
Pardon me?
just provide your statement, Mr. Lincoln, whatever that is.
I'm just gonna ask the question.
Yeah, we're not, this isn't an question and answer session. This is for you, an opportunity to provide your statement.
Okay. I know the score, people on the score committee are making what, $600 a meeting? And you board members are making $400 a meeting. Not a close resemblance to what you guys making is TWSD, Termalito Water Sewer District. They're making $600 a meeting. So I was trying to figure out, when you make the selections, are you going to pass the wealth on to your fellow counselors, or are you going to keep it for yourselves? You know, somebody's going to milk the cow, and it looks like you guys are doing it. Pass the wealth around. Don't be greedy.
Thank you. Having no more speakers, there is a motion and a second on the table.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 8, letter to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission regarding project number 2001, requesting delay of issuance of new license. Do we have any speakers on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do have 3 speakers on this item.
Did you wish to comment, Mr. LeGrand?
I just wanted to provide just a brief overview of this. What has recently come to the city's attention due to the litigation regarding the 2017 failure of the spillway is there's been new information that we've received regarding that litigation through the discovery process. That new information that is part of our litigation is important for us at this point to take this action to request the delay of this license until such time as the veracity of that information can be vetted out and determine what is in the best interest for our city and our community.
Madam Clerk, you have speakers.
Our first speaker is Eric C. And then Jack Kiley.
Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor. My name is Eric C. I am with DWR, and I've worked with the department here in Oroville for about 27 years now. First of all, I just wanted to reiterate the department's message that public safety and flood protection are DWR's top priorities in any of the operational decisions that we make at Lake Oroville. The main spillway as well as the emergency spillway have both been fully reconstructed. And this has been done to modern engineering standards under the oversight of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the California Division of Safety of Dams, and an independent board of dam safety consultants. And although this time frame does not allow me to cover all the issues or all of the things that DWR is doing right now regarding dam safety, I did want to highlight one of them, and that is the brand new Oroville Dam Citizens Advisory Commission. This was created by state law in 2018. This commission has established a new public forum for discussing issues related to Oroville Dam's facilities, dam safety issues, flood control, things like that. These meetings occur here in Oroville. They are open to the public, and they involve a variety of legislators, members of the local public. Butte County Sheriff Corey Honey is also a member, as well as other local law enforcement personnel. Our Department of Water Resources Director is on the committee, as is the Department of Parks and Recreation Director, as well as their boss, the Resources Secretary to the state of California, Wade Crowfoot. So these committee meetings, as I said, are open to the public and occur about 4 times a year now. They've decided to meet. With these numerous ongoing activities, all focused on dam safety, DWR is very confident in the safety of our facilities. Also had a couple comments just briefly about the FERC relicensing. The vast majority of the settlement agreement programs have not started yet, but we have actually started the supplemental benefits program. That's one of them. We spent about $11 million so far on projects to this community, and just wanted to emphasize a few of those. The Oroville Veterans Memorial Park, the Nelson Pool improvements, the completion of Brad Freedom Trail here in Oroville, and the renovations of the state theater.
Thank you, Mr. C.
Thank you, Eric.
Jack Kiley, and then Gianoia Widener. Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. I passed out, I think, Chief did three letters there. One of them is the county's response, I think, to your previous letter, and also a letter, it's actually a draft letter from Robert Bateman on that from the Feather River Recovery Alliance. And basically what our concern is we want verification of the safety of the dam. I think the people, the citizens need it. I think DWR should be in favor of it too, to have an independent study to address a lot of the safety items that are uncertain there, whether it's the gates or the seismic things. There's a lot of issues. I don't have time to go into all of those issues, but at times to be done. And the second item is, which I think has been very unfair to the city. The county just recently got about 13 million for the impact of the failure of the spillway, something in that nature there. The city has gotten zero. Neither has the parks. The Feather River Parks and Recreation District are looking at withdrawing from the settlement agreement for that very reason, that they are stuck with this. Basically, what they've done with your river is made it an aqueduct for transporting water to San Francisco or to the Southern California. So the city it's time to take a look at the impact it has on your law enforcement, everything here. You're entitled to a lot of money, the people are, but the big thing is the safety of the things need verification. DWR's credibility is questionable, and they need to, for this, I think they should support it. Let's get an independent review, address these safety issues so the citizens here feel that they are safe, their businesses are safe here. And Mr. Bateman, he owns Row Class, has 70 employees. He'd like to build and expand his business here, but he still has these safety concerns at the dam. So it's a real issue with a lot of people, and I think it's time, yes, if you can delay the thing of it, or actually consider withdrawing. If the city, the county, and the Feather River Park District were together on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I'm going to butcher this lovely lady's name again, so Miss Widener.
Like the city in Italy. So my name's Genoa Widener, and I'm with the Feather River Recovery Alliance. And I'll start off by saying that I'm really happy and relieved to see the letter on the agenda today to ask FERC to delay the issuance of a new license. I'm sure that I'm not alone in being very surprised that the council sent that letter in December, especially considering the current ongoing lawsuit that the city has against the Department of Water Resources. When the lawsuit was announced the year after the spillway collapse, I think that our community was supportive, and we were hopeful that our city leaders would do your job or your part in holding DWR accountable for the safety of our town. When you also think about the allegations of decades of negligence listed in the city's lawsuit, it's hard to fathom how or why that letter was sent in December. While I hope that this new letter can clarify to the federal regulators that our city wants DWR's license to be delayed, it is the last paragraph that I believe is very important to the future of our community. Specifically, that the settlement agreement, quote, may need to be reviewed with new appendices added. It absolutely needs to be reviewed. Whether changed or redone altogether, there are 6,469 signatures on the Feather River Recreation Alliance petition to hold DWR accountable. That is more than the amount of registered voters in the city of Oroville. Item number 2 on that petition is to reopen the licensing process in order to provide just compensation to the local governments and the communities that host the Oroville Dam. And the only way to do that is through the settlement agreement. I would hope that this council, not only to protect the interests of the people in the community, but also to represent the thousands of citizens of Oroville who signed that petition, would also withdraw from the settlement agreement, which was
Thank
made
you.
under the assumption that the Oroville Dam was safe.
Thank you,
and
ma'am.
functioned correctly, and we know
Ma'am.
that's not the case.
Are there any comments from the dais? Looking for a motion.
I move that we approve the letter.
We have no screens.
I'm sorry, I didn't see who seconded.
Oh, do you wish to speak, Councilmember Smith? There's a motion on the table.
I know, but if there's not a second.
Okay.
So, I was debating whether or not I would make a comment to this issue. But given there's not a second, at this moment, I'm just going to give perspective that I think to help all of us with the decision process here, because this is a challenging issue, to say the least. Behind me, this is one document on relicensing. Matt, you might be wondering, have I read? Yeah, I've read most of this. It's a challenging issue for our community. But there's two lanes here, and I think it maybe helps answer the question why we would have done it in the first place. One has to do with moving our community forward, and the other one has to do with safety. And they're joined, and yet they're different. Let me share something else. I like this newspaper. It's from 1968, May 3rd. It's 51 years old. That would have been us, City Council. Right there. Real excited. And the thing that I get from reading this newspaper, all the stories and all the excitement, of course we had then Governor Ronald Reagan here. The word that comes to mind is hope. A lot of hope, a lot of inspiration to what was to come for Oroville. And then, of course, a lot of that hope didn't seem to be fully realized, and we entered into this process of a settlement agreement back, well, it was drafted in 2005, a lot of 50s plus participants, and they crafted that document. And then we waited, and we waited. We've been waiting 15 years. And then, of course, it happened, right? The spillway incident. Mm-hmm. And I think that was pointed out, there has been a commission that has been appointed to review those issues when it comes to safety. And I think that's very, very apropos and justified and necessary. So I think, again, to put into perspective, so who is DWR, Department of Water Resources? It's the state of California. If it was a company, the CEO would be our governor, Gavin Newsom. He would be the CEO. The board would be the state legislature. In fact, if you read the settlement agreement, if there's an impasse when June 14th, 15th rolls around, when we're supposed to pass a city, a state budget, the dollars don't flow until that's resolved because it's a state agency. There are other things that are involved in this. We have what we call a comprehensive needs assessment, a process that the dam is undergoing currently to evaluate all the safety issues that are there. And then there is the ORAC committee, the Oroville Recreation Committee that deals with the promises and trying to vet and work all this through so that Oroville can realize the promises that were made. But there is a document here. You can just this is the Reader's Digest version to all this. Highlights of the settlement agreement. And it has the signatures of all the groups that sign this. But to the other question, who are the state water contractors? The state water contractors are the cities and the counties to our south. Butte County is a purchaser of water from Lake Oroville. They're a state water contractor. And so really what we're talking about here is a state agency, and the purchasers are our brothers and sisters to the south. And so to me, the question isn't so much what we're owed, but it's the responsibility that they have to us, to our community. Our community, we're the gatekeepers of that dam. You know, if something were to happen with that, not only would all of our lives be in peril, but the 5th largest economy in the world would be at stake. It's a pretty big deal. And Oroville is right at the gates. The employees, whether it's state parks or DWR employees who live here, work here, raise their families here, we're all impacted, every one of us, by what happens up there. The other thing that's frequently not talked about is the environment. You know, people came from cities from around the world to Oroville 100 years ago, a century ago, in search of fortune, right? They took our gold, they took our diamonds. There was a lot of natural resources that were stripped from this community. Now, the last gold that we have is our water. But in that process of taking the gold, taking the diamonds, there was a lot of ecological damage. In fact, when you look at that 11,000 square foot area just to our west, the wildlife area, it has been tremendously damaged. And there are millions and millions of dollars that need to go into fixing that for the eagles, for the beavers, for the fish. And here's the deal, when this whole thing was crafted, all of those environmental pieces were tied to the relicensing of the dam. And again, and you know, if some of you are interested in these documents, I'm more than happy to share them with you. But so here's my point. It's a very complicated issue. It involves a lot of people. It involves our state. You know, it's bigger than any one of us as an individual. And I say all of that to say this, that if we're being asked to put our finger gently on the pause button because there is an unmitigated concern that someone hasn't seen or we haven't discussed or we're not aware of, I think I'm aware of a lot of them, then I wish I had more time to consider the issue at hand. But I will second, saying all of that, to say that I will second the motion to move forward with this issue.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Draper wishes to speak.
Well, I have a question here of the representative from DWR. Can't think of your name, but I know your face. Yeah. It says here in this letter from Matthew Manahan, one of the concerns that he mentions. He says on December 5th, 2016, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration concluded that the project will adversely affect the essential fish habitat of Pacific coast salmon and recommended several conservation measures that were not considered in the 2007 environmental impact statement. So has this issue been addressed in the last 3 years or so?
Eric C. with the Department of Water Resources. What I can't say, I'm not familiar exactly with that letter you have, but I can say that the National Marine Fisheries Service signed the settlement agreement back in 2006, and then they were the primary reason why it took so long for the license, for this relicensing process to occur. Because we were waiting for their biological opinion, which is their permit that they issue for endangered species issues such as what you're talking about here. In December of 2016, after that long process, again, signing in 2006, DWR filed all of our paperwork. We got our water board permit, which was the second to last big one. That was in about January of 2011. So between 2011 and 2016, the National Marine Fisheries Service took that long. They issued that permit, and so we now have the biological opinion from the National Marine Fisheries Service, this organization you're talking about.
Okay, and then a second thing constituents have mentioned to me is concern, and I don't have any concerns about the dam itself. My husband's worked in construction. We've been up there many times. We're not worried about the dam. But some people are concerned about those gates, and they say that they were not replaced and that they should have been. And do you have a response for that?
You know, I don't. I'm not an expert in the that area. I mean, we certainly have those experts. If you had a specific question or you needed more information, I can certainly get that to you. But I don't have that answer right now with me.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I was just going to say some of the environmental. See, here's the deal. There's $1 billion that's going to be released once FERC relicensed the dam to address a lot of the environmental issues. Enhancements for the brooding ponds, the bald eagle nesting boxes. I mean, it's really comprehensive. And so again, just going back to why we did that, it's like, we've been waiting 15 years, and if it's not tied to the safety, because we have all these other groups looking out over these issues, and FERC isn't going to do that until all these I's are dotted and these T's are crossed, then let's start moving forward. I think it was in that spirit that we signed that letter. That being said, if there's new information that's come forward, and that we need to consider that. I don't think there's we're not talking about pulling out of the settlement agreement here. We're not talking about anything really radical. We're just saying, FERC, put a finger on the pause button. I'm good with that. That's all I'm saying. Because this is a very complex, 50, and we're talking about a 50-year deal here to our state. But again, I just wanted us to have a clear understanding who we're talking about. It's our sister cities and counties to our south. It's our governor and our state legislature. These guys are all in control of this, and so I think it's just important to have a good working perspective. And Oroville matters. We do matter. We are the gatekeepers, and our opinion does count. I mean, we may be a small county, but again, or a small city. But nevertheless, I think that we carry a lot of weight, and we hold a lot of cards here, and so I think we need to just again consider everything we say, everything we do, very, very carefully in this matter. But I have put a second on the floor.
Thank you. If there are no other comments from the dais, there's a motion on the table.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to reports, discussions, correspondence. If there are any council announcements, Councilmember Draper.
Okay, let's see. I attended the Continuum of Care meeting on February 10th and also the Arts Commission on February 11th. And a really neat thing that came out at the Continuum of Care meeting is that there's a mobile medical unit that they have funded. It was $350,000, and it is pretty amazing. It's arrived on January 27th of this year, and it will be parked at various locations around Chico and Oroville. They have 5 employees and 1 outreach coordinator. And this will be offering health services to homeless people that might not normally go to the hospital or feel okay about going to the hospital. And so that was pretty exciting to hear that they have this now.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, attending the Downtown Business Association's meeting, they wanted me to remind the public that they have an event called Around the World, which will be happening on the 6th of March, and the different businesses will be representing different parts of the world with food and drink and some of the, just things, the fun things that go along with the different parts of our world. Also, they asked me to bring up the issue of broken windows. They're a little bit frustrated. There have been some businesses that have been boarded up for a significant amount of time, which goes back to our earlier conversation about developing a comprehensive policy for the city to deal with when we have damaged infrastructure, signs broken, like the guardrail on our roundabout that we have to look at every day. And I don't know if there's any, overlap here that maybe we could look at regarding that, but I know that there's a lot of frustration because they've done if you've all noticed, our downtown's starting to look pretty amazing with just the lights and you can see that they care, and that does make a huge difference. But it's the old broken window, scenario, and so they wanted me to put voice to their frustration with that.
We hear them. That's the one of the biggest long-term broken windows down there was a vehicle collision with our building that caused extensive damage to the front of the building. The reason why it's continued to be that way is because the facade of that building was repaired or built through grant funding. a very specific type of wood was used to build that. It's not just what you'd run down to Home Depot and get. It was imported. Unfortunately, we can't get that wood. So in order to comply with the grant, we're trying to find something very similar that we can stay within the confines of that grant for that facade. So it is taking an inordinate amount of time for our window. I would, I'm not sure what they're asking for. If they're wanting us to come down there and aggressively code enforce them, I don't think they're going to like the end result of that as far as broken windows. So, but I think there is a way that we can probably all work together to encourage one another and see what we can do to do that. So, but we're not going to start. I don't even want to start aggressive code enforcement with that's just going to cause more problems. So, but I believe there is a way we can all work together to resolve that. And we are working on ours just as quickly as we can.
Yeah, I think their board mentioned that they're going to put out letters from the downtown business associations from the bid. So, and start with that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And we'll join with them and, do everything we can to assist.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, thank you. I want to echo the same with the Downtown Business Association. They had the first Friday, I believe it was, the wine and chocolate tour of downtown, and I happened to go, and it was really quite nice. There was over 100 and some plus visitors downtown, and there's kind of a resurgence of business activity, and I encourage you all to attend. It was a lot of fun. The one concern I had, though, is it was dark. It was one of those nights it was dark, and could have been a little extra patrol maybe down the line. Think about it, because it's really kind of a short, narrow window of time, so that might be something to consider in the future. The other item I want to mention is, of course, the Rotary of Oroville had the Rotary Roundup at the casino, and very heavily attended. 450, I believe, tickets were mentioned or sold, and really good support from the community. One of the projects, I think, our president, I don't know if he's announced it officially yet or not, but they'll be looking at the koi pond and whatnot at the Chinese temple coming up for a rebuild and a Rotary work project. So, and then we just did the well over here at BCOE Park has just been refurbished and done by that. So there's a couple Rotary projects coming up to look forward to, and the gazebo at Sank Park is another one. I don't want to steal the president's thunder, but there's a lot of consideration projects coming up, so look forward to those things happening. So the other thing I wanted to ask a question about just publicly is, I know we have it soon to happen, but the speed bumps up at the roundabout, is that in the near future, or what can we find out about those?
That is actually on I just spoke with Mr. DiPaolo this afternoon, and that is going to be, I believe, started in March. Okay, it goes out to bid in March. There was a little bit different engineering that had to be done in order to resolve that. But that will be coming forward.
Thank you.
Councilmember Goodson.
Last night I attended the NAACP meeting, and we meet the third Monday of every month at the Southside Oroville Community Center. Looking forward to, we haven't met in a while, and because of the holidays, and we're looking forward to another good and successful year. I also wanted to piggyback off of Councilman Pittman. I attended the Rotary Roundup. It's quite an experience. Very well attended, excellent food, entertainment. What was the name of the group?
Inside Straight.
Inside Straight. They were marvelous. And so I was really looking forward to a get-up challenge, and that didn't happen, but perhaps we could see that in the future between OPD and the Sheriff's Department. What say you? Are you up for the challenge, Chief Joe Deal? Just thought I'd put it out there. That's it.
All right, I too attended the Rotary Roundup, as I have for the last 15 years or so. And it was a very nice event. And I would have to say I enjoyed a nice dance with Councilmember Goodson. So, moving on to future agenda items. I had something, Bill. I would like to see it put forward that you or staff has a discretionary amount in, this fire engine thing could have been taken care of a while back if prices weren't raised and we had to come back to council, and all of these things take weeks and weeks. I would like to see you be able to have a little bit of leeway in that, whereas if this would have come up, you could have let council know that this is what happened, and you went ahead and were moving forward with it, because I think this is, well, I know it's slowing down the process and having, in this case, another safety vehicle on the road.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We'll bring that back with the budget adoption this year of some discretion within there that can be made with council notice of that, if a change is made. We'll limit what that can be to. We don't want to get just, carte blanche.
Right.
But we'll bring back a budget policy for the council to consider and then to give us direction on.
Right, thank you. Councilmember Draper?
Well, I'd like to suggest that on the next agenda, we have a letter of support to Butte County Board of Supervisors about Laura's Law. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Administration reports. Ruth?
I just want to let the council know I'm working on the financial reports. I had too much come up this time to get it on the agenda, but I am working on something to get to you, and hopefully it'll be on the next agenda.
Tom?
On March 4th, unless the agenda's overcrowded, excuse me, I expect us to bring a discussion before you, and us being staff, basically all staff, regarding future annexations. I've already mentioned the municipal service review and the development impact fee update. That's it.
Thank you. Bill?
Just two things I want to bring to the council and the community's attention. The first one is on our website now are the first two previews of districting maps. If individuals would like to see those, if they go to our website, go to the section for districting, they'll see the two maps are provided by our demographer. We're also still looking for input from the community. If somebody would like to submit a map, you can do that at the front counter of City Hall. You can bring it to a council meeting and leave it with us. So that we can consider those as well. At our next meeting, we will have our next public hearing regarding the districting maps and input from the council and any changes that could potentially be made to those maps. So everybody should be prepared for that. The second thing I'd like to remind everybody of is that the Sam Norris Award deadline is coming up. That is going to be on the 26th of February, precisely at 4 p.m. Jackie told me 4:01 is no good. She will not accept the application, but 3:59, 4 o'clock, you're good to go. But anyway, it's for the Sam Norris Award. We're looking for people to submit applications for individuals they feel are worthy of that. We also have the Voice of the Arts. I'm not sure, I have to ask Councilperson Draper, when is that one due? It's a very similar timeline?
We already did that.
Oh, we did?
Yes, and there was one individual and one organization, and off the top of my head, I can't think of
Well, I know we
exactly.
normally do them with when the mayor gives a speech, State of the City. That's typically where it's done. That's where
Sherry
it's traditionally
Bunker
been done.
is also in there. Sherry, do you recall who's?
The Exchange Club of Oroville and Rex Burris.
Thank you.
Great. And so
My
we'll-
mind just went blank.
We'll still be awarding those, I believe, at the State of the City address from the mayor this year. So I just want to make sure we get plenty of applicants and make sure people know I think it's a pretty prestigious thing to get that, and it's a worthy thing that the city does. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Sam?
Nothing at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Leo?
Yeah, good evening. Dovetailing on what you asked about with the roundabout,
We have a pretty aggressive Public Works Development Engineering schedule this year, so I'll just run through that quickly. Tonight, you guys, on the consent agenda was the Wine and Dot repair. That'll start construction in March. In March, we will also put out for bid the Table Mountain Wall, the RFP for that. The roundabout will be out to bid, and so will the Montgomery and Table Mountain sewers. Come April, we're looking at the sewer lining going out for bid, and then in May, we'll put out for bid the annual paving project, which is about $3 million in paving too. So once those costs all come back, we'll look at the budget we have available to spend on that, but it's pretty aggressive, and that's all work that will get done before the year's end, so.
Thank you. Chief?
Nothing at this time, sir.
I just want to thank the council for the opportunity to return. It's a pleasure being back. Thank you.
Welcome, Don.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could, a lot of that engineering work and stuff that we're putting out to bid is a result of Measure U. So these are your special district tax, the 1% that the community approved. This is those dollars at work. And so just want to make everybody know that we are utilizing those dollars, and those dollars are going back into the infrastructure of the community.
Thank you. Okay, well, with that, we're going to adjourn this meeting. Next meeting will be March 3rd, 2020 at 5 p.m.